Cow on the left-hand side. He's playing a Maverick build with blue for Rocks Warmonk and Geist of St. Traft.
Wow, Geist of St. Traft's not a card we've seen a lot of in this deck.
A couple of them.
Yeah, a few.
And so
also has the Punishing Fires though.
Yes, he does. So he's actually got the Grove of Fire.
Yeah.
So
2 Grove of the Burn Willows only, 3 Punishing Fires. So sort of strange numbers on those.
He does have the Knight of the Reliquary to go fetch the Groves.
He does.
But and Stoneforge Mystic to go find a Sword of Feast and Famine, Batterskull, or Umezawa's Jitte. That's a pretty standard complement for the Stoneforge Mystic decks.
I think so too. And one important thing to note is that in the sideboard he has no Sword of Fire and Ice, no Sword of Body and Mind, so no Pro Blue
on
Sword.
Feast and Famine.
Yeah, no Pro Blue, so that's good news for Christopher Carire.
Now, what's interesting is with a Maverick deck where he does have the blue in there, that's actually going to open the door to the Merfolk deck a lot.
Yeah, Lord of Atlantis, Island Walk.
Yep.
Those 2 tropical islands will be a liability if he draws them.
And so William leads off with a Misty Rainforest, and in fact, he does not go and get the tropical island he was starting to pull out. Instead, he's going to pull out a Taiga, Green Sun Zenith for 0, and that means he's going to get his Dryad Arbor.
Yep. And William's going to be really happy he didn't get the Trop when he sees that Christopher's on Merfolk.
Yep, and I've got to guess that William's not expecting to be playing this deck right now.
No.
There's only a couple of them in the format. Unless he specifically knows what Christopher is playing, this is not where you're expecting to see a Merfolk deck.
Right, not at X1, 2 rounds left into the tournament. But that's exactly what it is. He leads off with Island and Vial.
And at that point, you've got to know exactly what you're playing
Yeah,
against.
you definitely do. It's not Blue Goblins, so it's Merfolk. So William draws a Savannah for his turn. Plenty of mana available for him.
Windswept Heath from William. And looking at a hand that's got a lot more mana sources than he probably would like here.
Right. That's the one downside of not playing Brainstorm in Legacy. The Brainstorm decks get to fix their hand whenever they want. Maverick doesn't.
Another quick check to see what he's got available to him. And a basic forest comes out of his deck.
Yeah, he knows he wants to limit the number of non-basics and avoid any islands, obviously.
Now, Christopher actually doesn't have anything to punish non-basics in his main deck.
Oh, wow, I didn't even notice that. He has 0 Wastelands. 4 Mutavault, 4 Mishra's Factory, 12 Island. That's really unusual.
And there are a lot of ways that the Merfolk deck can get aggressive about that. But right. Scavenging Ooze from William follows up. Christopher looks like he needs to refresh his...
I think the judge is reading it, actually.
Judge is refreshing his knowledge on the Commander card, Scavenging Ooze.
It's interesting how much of an impact those Commander cards have had on Legacy. Scavenging Ooze is really good.
Yeah, the one that I think a lot of people thought was going to make much more of an impact is Flusterstorm,
right.
Which just didn't do it. Mutavault from Christopher, and 2 allows him to drop a Standstill, and I'm not sure...
I don't know if that's good for him or not.
He does have the Vial, but if William's able to deal with the Vial in any way, then we're looking at a situation where William has the pressure on the board.
Right. I mean, the Scavenging Ooze will grow pretty quickly. It can't grow right now, but as soon as a creature dies, it will be able to. And Dryad Arbor is a creature.
Let's remind our audience of what Scavenging Ooze does. Scavenging Ooze is 1 and a green for a 2/2. For 1 green, you can exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and you gain 1 life.
Yep, exactly. So if you exile a non-creature, you neither gain a life nor put a counter on it.
And so William comes in for another 3 with the Ooze and the Dryad Arbor. Christopher ticks up to 2 on his Aether Vial, and that opens up a host of possibilities for him.
Yep, there are a lot of 2-power creatures he can vial in right now. Nothing with more than 2 power. Of course, the Merfolk deck doesn't have anything like that.
So he's got 2 cost cards here. He could bring in a Coralhelm Commander, a Silvergill Adept, or a Lord. He's going to choose to activate his Mutavault, block that Scavenging Ooze. Without a creature in the bin, William's forced to simply trade.
Yeah, and here the standstill will probably be broken by William. He's not going to be able to really do anything. Doesn't have any man lands in his deck except Dryad Arbor. And yeah, there it is.
And so he's going to go ahead and give Christopher 3 cards for his Knight of the Reliquary, and let's see whether or not one of these happens to be a Force of Will, because that Knight is already getting to be a pretty big threat.
Yeah, that's a 5/5. That's huge. Can also fetch up Grove of the Burnwells, which probably more importantly.
So we're going to have Silvergill Adept coming in. I'm assuming this is all with Knight on the stack.
I think so. And yeah,
and there is the Force of Will, removing a Curse Catcher.
And that's exactly why Standstill is so good, because in your deck with 4 Force of Will, you can just tap out for it without having to worry about anything.
Gives you a lot more opportunities to go and find that Force of Will.
Right. Open competitors, your pairings for the next round.
And Christopher, even though he has 1 land and 3 permanents, still is doing really well this game. He has a seemingly never-ending stream of man lands because he has 8 in his deck.
Mishra's Factory comes down. Silvergill Adept gets in. That Aether Vial on 2 is really important. Christopher's got another Aether Vial in his hand. He's going to just keep it there.
Wonder what he's saving his 2 mana for. One of which is a colorless land and doesn't really cast anything except a hard cast Ace.
All right.
Maybe he wants to block that Dryad Arbor.
Now that is a Caracas. Yeah, that's the Caracas.
And that's a FNM promo Quasali Pride Mage, if you don't know that art. So Dryad Arbor will come in for 2 Exalted. And trade with Mishra's.
Trade with Mishra's Factory. So Chris is being pretty aggressive about trying to keep his life total up. He seems to think that if he can push...
Yep, and looks like Chris forgot about Exalted. And he'll try and vial something in, but damage is already resolved, so he's not going to get the chance to do that.
And if that was a Mutavault, it would have helped to have vialed someone in, but with
that's right too.
With the Mishra's Factory, it's just going to be a 2/2, and we're going to be binning some more guys. Chris looks pretty frustrated to have made that misplay.
Yeah, he would not have blocked if he knew that Arbor was a 2/2. But that's just the thing with any Exalted creatures. You don't have to announce that it has Exalted. You can just attack.
It's a trigger without any visual representation on the game, so it's assumed to have resolved whether or not the players actively resolve it.
Yep.
Vials in a Lord of Atlantis, and that makes it very important that William has not found any of his blue sources.
Right. And there's that vial.
Yep, there's the second vial. It's going to take a couple turns to kick back up into a place where Christopher's going to be able to really take advantage of it. But right now, between the Lord and the Silvergill Adept, that's 5 damage coming in.
Yeah, it is. And William has no choice but to take that. He's not chump blocking. He'll go to 11.
That Mother of Runes is going to get a bit more functional as a blocker now that it can tap and protect itself.
Yeah, so William, no play on his turn. Something like a Punishing Fire or a Swords to Plowshares on that Lord will let that Mother pick off the Silvergill Adept in combat.
I haven't seen a Punishing Fire in hand yet, but he's not showing us his hand, keeping it pretty close to the vest. Second Mishra's Factory from Christopher, and activates one of them.
Yep, so he has 7 points of power here, attacking.
And so Mother's going to hop in front of the Silvergill Adept. Factory's going to pump the other factory.
Yeah, it's really interesting that William Cow has drawn neither Swords to Plowshares nor Punishing Fire. He has 7 copies in his deck.
And that's another 5 damage off of William.
Yep, he goes to 6.
And he seems to be flipping through those cards, hoping that they're going to change. This is probably, another Knight. And let's see whether or not Christopher has found an answer here, or whether or not he's going to have to deal with... Yep, that Knight's going to be pretty good at slowing down the attacks here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, too, that Christopher has no way to deal with the resolved permanent except Jace. Only Jace can bounce something in this deck. And he asks how big that is. I think it's a 5/5. Might be a 6/6, though. Either way, Christopher's attacks have to stop for now. At most, he can deal 4 damage this turn unless he has
Yep.
another Lord.
He could push through. He'd lose one guy.
Yep.
He'd probably lose both guys because the Lord would get blocked and the Silvergill would get blocked, which would drop down. But that might be enough to push him down to 2, vial something in. If he has any chance of pushing more through, that would be the very aggressive play.
Yeah, wow. So that's a Marrow Regery. As soon as Chris finds another Merfolk, or if he has one, this game should be pretty close to over here.
He removed a Curse Catcher earlier to his Force of Will, which is probably the right card. It has the least impact on this matchup, but right now he would have loved to have had that Curse Catcher.
Yeah, as it is, he's just forced to say go. As soon as he draws a Merfolk, though, that'll force the tap.
He definitely has William on his back foot. William's got to do something to kind of pull himself back in, especially with both Lords on the... There's
Wow,
Batterskull.
Batterskull. That's huge.
Batterskull does not do all that much when it's tapped, though.
That's true.
So, question is whether or not Christopher can find a way to get 2 Merfolk in, tap down the Batterskull. That's got to be the first priority.
Yeah.
Second priority is going to be the Knight of the Reliquary, and he can start pushing through some damage.
Yeah, when he tries to tap that with the Marrow Regery's ability, though, Mother Runes should give it Pro Blue, and that lifelink might be all he needs. All but 2 Regeries.
Here is the second Regery in, and he's also found a 3rd island, which gives him a little more flexibility in terms of actually casting.
Wow, so Lords
2.
upon Lords here.
That also will make even just a lowly Silvergill Adept very aggressive. That
Lethal.
Silvergill Adept is now a 6/5.
Yeah, that's crazy. The only thing that might save William here is that Chris can't activate both of his factors this turn.
And those Lords are all 5 power.
Yep. Unfortunately for William, he has no Mazavith in his main deck, so he's not going to be able to get that. He will search up a Wasteland here, though. That will threaten to kill the Mishras right there.
That can protect him from one of the Mishra's factories, but right here you've got the Regery and the Lord of Atlantis that are down on to your right, close to Chris. Those both came in this turn. That means that he's got 3 active guys, but that Batterskull is going to be not only protection from blue, but that's going to gain him some life right as all the combat damage is dealt.
Yeah. No longer just goes on the stack anymore. Happens instantly.
Yep. So that means even if he swings in, if he blocks the Adept, he's going to take 10, but he will... Batterskull is plus...
+4, +4.
So it may not... It's not enough.
No, I don't think it is. I think he's just
It's
barely
going
dead.
to bring him
He's
to
dead exactly.
just perfectly dead. Now in this situation, if Chris activates one of his Mishra's Workshops, you got to think that Wasteland's going to take out one of them at any point, but he can force William to use that up and have absolutely no resources left to deal with the attack. And
Wow.
Christopher passes.
Says go. I'm not sure if we have the life total wrong or Chris just miscounted, but I think he just missed lethal there.
Batterskull wastes no time switching that over to the Knight of the Reliquary, and William's going to go with the plan of, I'll gain a ton of life, please.
Yeah, exactly. This
I'm
is
not
the
gonna give
opportunity
you-
he needed.
Not going to give you a chance to do math again.
So he's going to gain a lot of life. I think that Knight of the Reliquary is now a 7/7 with Batterskull on it, I want to say. Maybe an 8/8.
No, it's +4/+4, +2. Then it's 2/2 to begin with, so that's 6. And I believe you have 4 lands in the graveyard, so that's 10.
Yeah, it was either 10 or 11. So William Cow either at 16 or 17, Christopher Carire either at 5 or 4.
Now, once again, I think that we're looking at William dead on board unless he's holding a swords. But
Well-
now he has untapped land, and he can threaten that at least.
That Knight also will gain a ton of life upon blocking.
And 17 after the attack.
Yeah, Chris just sitting with 2 islands in hand. He's not going to be able to
11.
get through that gigantic
and
life
that's-
linker.
Just a beast with Batterskull granting vigilance as well.
Yeah, the vigilance is super important here. Batterskull might be a fair card if it didn't get Vigilance. Or it might be a fairer card.
Now, in that situation, it almost feels like you needed to take that knight down. Whatever it took to do it.
Yeah, well, he had lethal. I think he miscounted and didn't take the opportunity to kill his opponent.
And so the attacks in here, you're going to have 15, 19 damage, but the knight is going to sacrifice, go find another, go up to, I believe, a 12-12 at this point.
Yep, that'll make it 12 power, 13 if he finds a fetch.
It's going to negate a ton of the damage that's going through here. Going to find a wasteland, which is going to immediately go straight to the bin, knocking out a Mishra's factory.
Yep, that of course grows the knight by 2 with the activation in the wasteland.
And with the Batterskull attached, that's 2 more life that he's going to be gaining.
Yeah, that's the biggest life linker I think I've ever seen.
So that's 17 damage that's coming in, and under normal circumstances, in the real world, William Cow would be well and truly dead, but that knight with the Batterskull attached is going to keep him at a healthy life total.
Yeah,
and at this point, it's time to go.
He realized he tapped all his creatures, and he was just dead to the counter swing. So Christopher Carire passed up an onboard kill there. Maybe he miscounted. Maybe he had the life total wrong, but I'm sure that's going to come back to haunt him.
He may have had the size on the knight wrong, because if there was one more land, then William goes to 1, and he gives away one of his strong cards.
Well, I don't think the knight had the Batterskull at that point. 2 turns ago.
It was just a straight Batterskull.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's okay though. Chris can definitely pull it together for the next game. He'll be on the play for the next one, and let's check out the sideboards here. So Christopher Carire, Lawan Cephalid Empress. Probably not going to be bringing that one in.
Not going to help much here.
2 Energy Fluxes, 2 GTAs, 2 Shackles, 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 3 Mindbreak Track, and a Kira. So I think the ones we'll see for sure, Kira and GTA will be the lock inclusions.
Absolutely.
He might bring in Pithing Needle. Stops both Mother of Runes. It stops Knight of the Reliquary. Stops.
I think
a lot of things.
Stopping Knight is probably what he's going to be looking at there.
Yeah, it's just a really versatile card. Not much of an opportunity cost, 1 mana.
He did see the Grove, so he knows that the Punishing Fire combo is in there. We didn't see it in effect in game 1.
He might even side in these relics. He doesn't use the graveyard at all, and William does a lot. He has the Knights, of course.
Yep.
He has the Punishing Fire.
Good way to shrink down the Knights. Good way to counter the Punishing Fire.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, it's not like it costs you too much to include Relic in your deck, because it always cantrips even when it's not good. Yeah. So
I've got to think the Curse Catchers are probably coming out.
Yeah, definitely his worst Merfolk. Just there for curve reasons. But against William, they don't really do anything. They can counter Green Sun Zenith, but everything else, they're not going to counter.
Now, Green Sun Zenith is no slouch. It's definitely one of the most important spells in William's deck.
It definitely is, but
you've got to think that if you're being aggressive and you're looking to bring in things that are going to be stronger against William's deck, Curse Catchers are probably your weakest cards to pull out.
Yeah, definitely. Same with Spell Pierce. They punish the Green Sun Zenith. They punish the Punishing Fire a little bit, Swords a little bit, but those cards usually, they'd be able to pay for Spell Pierce, especially Swords.
Now, we talked about how William didn't have a Maze of Ith to go get in game 1. He does have one out of the sideboard.
Yeah.
I'd expect that would come in.
It definitely will. He'd love to tutor that one up.
I think the Scavenging Ooze is probably going to come out. All it is really a Grizzly Bear against Christopher.
Yeah.
There's nothing he needs to pull out of the graveyard.
It's really only good late game when there are a ton of creatures in the graveyard. It could definitely come out. It's one of his weaker cards, I would say. Geist of St. Traff, also not where he wants to be here.
Yeah, he gets blocked by a ton of things, and with Aethervial there to surprise you with what's going to be able to jump in the way,
right,
the Geist is most likely just going to get knocked down the first time that it goes in to fight.
Right. I also expect William to side out one of his 2 tropical islands, just because he can't afford to ever search that up. He probably wants to keep it in because the 1 Rocks Warmonk card's really good against Merfolk. But that's it.
Once the Geists are coming out, he might take that other Rocks Warmonk out as well as the 2 islands.
Yeah, he might.
And move towards a different plan.
Yeah,
I mean, he does have a Sylvan Library. The Maze of Ith we want to come in. He's got Crucible of Worlds. He saw a bunch of manlands. He saw 3 of Christopher's factories and a Mutavault, so he knows that there's at least 4, and he may want to try and reuse the wastelands. Not as important against a deck like Christopher's that relies so heavily on basic lands, but the non-basics are very important to his strategy.
Yeah, definitely. I expect him to side out the Trops. And yeah, there's that relic right there.
Yep.
So Christopher can pop that whenever he wants to. Won't affect him at all.
William leads with a Savannah into a Noble Hierarch, and we're ramping again.
Yep, definitely the start he wants.
William is expecting a daze here.
And there it is.
There it is.
Yep. Not a trade he's too upset with. Without Chris having Aether Vial, that's not too bad. He doesn't have any pressure, and he has to return his only land.
And away goes the Noble Hierarch, as the relic keeps William's graveyard empty so that he can start knocking out lands should they fall in there.
There's
A Horizon Canopy.
Not the land he wants, but he'll take it. Taking pain against Merfolk from your lands is not what you want to be doing.
And passing over with no play on turn 2.
Yep, chooses not to cast his GT, does not want to get that dazed. That one's too important to get dazed.
He also has a Green Sun Zenith we saw there that he could have dug for his Dryad Arbor, even playing around days. And there is a GT from Christopher.
Yeah, and that will certainly get either Legend Ruled or Ghazali Pride Maged. We'll see which one. So far, William's been pretty hesitant to really play into days. And there's GT.
Yep. And at this point, if Christopher wants to daze, all William has to do is sacrifice that Windswept Heath.
Right.
Go get a land and pay for it.
Pretty interesting that William's using his Horizon Canopy instead of using that Heath. I think that's good play.
He's going to go for a hard counter.
Force of Will. He
now
thinks
let's
that
see whether or not he goes and gets a Tropical Island, which would be a very... Yep. And maybe this is the Spell Pierce that is out of the board?
Looks like it, yeah.
William's smiling there because he knows how dangerous that play was. Going and getting that
Spell Pierce.
And there is the Spell Pierce.
But he has to resolve that GT.
So, essentially, that was spending 2 cards for 2 cards. But,
well, also the card that he removed to the Force of Will.
Yep. So
right
that's
now,
interesting. Chris is down to 2 cards in his hand.
Yeah, one is a standstill though, and he does have a manland. So if I'm Chris, I just slam that standstill. He's so low on cards. Nope, he's gonna play the Reejerey. The reason I don't like this is
getting
because,
a little aggressive.
Yeah, William can just untap and add a bigger threat. Almost any threat in his deck will trump that Reejerey.
No, that Wasteland changes the game as well.
Yeah.
Green Sun Zenith for 3. You got to think that that's likely going and getting a Knight.
Yeah. Easily the best creature in William's deck on a board like this. Even though it'll be a 2/2, it'll still fetch up the Grove of the Burn Willows.
3/3 because
3/3.
Christopher actually... Well, it's going to drop back down on Christopher's turn.
Yep.
But...
it can be a 2/2 on command, basically. So it looks like Chris drew a Pithing Needle.
So that can at least shut off the Knight from being a tutor as well.
Yeah, that'll neuter that Knight. Definitely good to get that before it gets out of hand. Gets the Grove, gets the Maze of Ith.
And Christopher clearly chooses the Knight.
Yep.
And drops his standstill because why not?
Yeah.
At this point.
As it works
seems like
out,
a pretty even board.
Yep.
Now, this is an interesting situation because he is tapped out, which means that he can't sacrifice the relic. The Wasteland can pump the Knight back up by targeting the, I believe it's a Mutavault that's on the board right now.
Mishra's maybe, but...
and that's
a Maze
of Ith.
Yep.
That's a Judge Foil Maze of Ith. Attacks in, it's a 3/3 right now.
And Christopher has to take this. He can shrink it by 1 to only take 2.
So he'll get rid of the Windswept Heath out of the graveyard. And it looks like William will choose... Nope, he'll sacrifice his Horizon Canopy.
Okay.
Draw a card.
Draw Swords to Plowshares. So William's going to try and stock his hand up.
He seems perfectly content right now to sit back, wait, and just build hands because Knight of the Reliquary, even turned off by Pithing Needle, he's got plenty of different ways to pump that up all on its own. He's got the Wasteland. He just dumped the Horizon Canopy. That's a second Pithing Needle for Chris. That's not the card he wants to see right now.
No, I mean, I still think this game subtly is going to favor Chris here. Even though his opponent has the Maze of It, he has more manlands in his deck than his opponent has Wastelands. So eventually the long game will go to him. Because what's going to happen eventually, that Mareridri and that Knight are just going to stare at each other for a long time. The Mareridri can attack, and I don't think William will attack with his Knight.
As long as he has one up, he can remove the Horizon Canopy with the Relic.
So Mareridri gets Maze of It. Gives William the option whether he wants to take 2 or not.
Another draw for William, and I think we're filling up our hand here, and we're playing the game of let's get to a point where I think that I can overwhelm you even through the standstill.
Yeah, exactly. And another reason this is going to favor Chris is because William doesn't actually have that many lands that produce mana. He has a lot of fetch lands, so he's going to thin his deck out of lands. He's going to have to discard way before Chris will. These standstill games are often you have to think about the long game, taking into account both players' entire decks.
The Relic removes the Horizon Canopy, and now Chris pretty much has the Knight locked at 2/2 for the moment. Passes back over to William. William draws.
Yep, he does. He wouldn't mind some lands here.
Yeah, building up a resource advantage is one of the things that you can do throughout behind a standstill, but right now it doesn't look like either of them are really building up anything more than a few more extra cards in hand.
Right. Yeah, there's not a heck of a lot that either player can do without casting spells.
Christopher drops his 4th land, passes back over. Misty Rainforest.
Yep, they're just going to play land go for a while. I think eventually William will have to break the standstill. But we'll see how this plays out.
Now, with a couple of lands that can sacrifice, he could get aggressive with the Knight, but I don't think that that's the right play.
No, when your opponent's at 16, I think that I don't see much use in that.
And William's trying to figure out exactly how he wants to do this. 3 lands looks like probably another Knight.
Yeah, he knows that the long game doesn't favor him. His opponent has
there's
8 man lands. So
we just saw the Rock's Warmonk still in William's deck.
Okay.
So definitely left that in. As we saw earlier, he does have the tropical island.
And here it comes, Knight.
And there's Knight number 2, and it is now time to start.
This is where the fun begins, right here.
1, 2, 3.
So Chris with 6 cards in hand, William with 5 right now. This is going to be an interesting game. William has
a Mother
Swords,
of
Mother.
Swords.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's banking on the fact that Christopher's not going to be able to hold him down enough or punish him enough for breaking that standstill.
Right.
Second Misty Rainforest hits the bin, bringing the Knight up to a 4/4 and dropping William to 15.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Relic still active on the board, he can either choose to just tap it once, get rid of one of them, or he can go ahead and just wipe the whole graveyard. I think with the Wasteland on the board, he probably wants to keep it active.
Yeah, he's going to keep that for as long as he can. He would rather not use it, but he might be forced to.
At this point, Pithing Needle's still shutting down the Knights from doing anything, and I think it may be time to pop that Relic, get rid of those 3 lands, drop those back down to 2/2s.
I don't know if you can do that yet. I don't see any reason to. I think Chris is going to see what he draws for his turn first. But we'll see. Draw another Relic, I think. Brings a Mutavault to the front of his hand. I believe his hand right now, Pithing Needle, Relic, Mutavault, Regery.
That's 3 for another Regery.
Yep.
And that's going to make almost any merfolk that he plays a major a major thing. So it looks like he may have kept the Curse Catchers in.
Wow,
he did.
That's really strange.
So there's 2 targets, and he's going to
untap some
be
land.
using those those Regeries as some ramp.
Yeah, that Curse Catcher just netted him 1 blue mana.
Yeah, and there's actually another Curse Catcher in his hand. Mutavault coming down. Mutavault.
I mean, you have to keep a crucial mass of merfolk in, but Curse Catcher is just so weak against William Cow.
Another Pithing Needle, and Will names Mother of Runes. And so William apparently is playing vanilla 1/1s and 2/2s. I'm not sure that Grey Ogres and
Mons
Eager
Goblin
Cadets
Raiders
are going to get there.
Yeah, those don't look so good, but at the same time, Chris had to use 2 cards on that, so it's not too bad.
Now, a lot of the Maverick decks do have Croson Grip out of the board, but that's not something that William had.
Nope, and that's a Pride Mage, so that's a game changer right there.
That is his answer.
Yep. Have to imagine this will be killing the Needle on Night. Yeah, and that's exactly what it does. Those Knights are way more important than the 1 Mother of Runes right now.
Yep. And before, yeah. So Chris activates the Relic, but since the Kasali Pride Mage is a sacrifice, first opportunity he has to do that is when there's already land in the bin.
Yep,
William's going to waste no time
getting rid of that tropical island.
Getting aggressive and getting rid of that tropical island just in case.
Yeah, he clearly didn't really want to get it in the first place. Like you said, we saw him laughing there about it. He knew it could kill him, but had no choice really. And now he's just going to try and load this graveyard, overload that Relic.
Yeah, he wants to force that to go off. We think we may have seen a second Relic in Christopher's hand, but William is just trying to deal with the one that's on the board.
Yeah, it could have been a Curse Catcher.
Force the hand.
Those pictures do look really similar, Curse Catcher and Relic.
All right, and there's swords number 1. We do know that William has 2 swords in his hand.
And Pierce
And
you.
Spell Pierce is coming right back at you.
Now that William knows that Chris has Spell Pierce, if this goes to a Game 3, expect him to play differently because of it too. He hasn't seen it before this. Especially not post-board.
And this is where the fact that Maze of Ith, not really a land,
yeah, exactly,
comes into play.
Interesting to note that William could have paid for it if he wanted to. Oh, actually, it is still on the stack, so he'll fetch up a land and pay for it there.
Okay. He's going to use the... Yep, and so here's a Grove.
Yep, it will get countered by the Curse Catcher if Christopher wants it to, but either way, as long as the sword kills something, it's sort of done its job. 2 for 1 to Chris.
Yep, and there's Curse Catcher going into the bin.
And as long as William has that 1 Maze of Ith untapped, he can never take too much damage. The one thing Chris can do is he can tap the Maze of Ith with the Regery's ability.
Yep.
But that's only if he has another Merfolk.
So double Regery threatens to be pretty good for any Merfolk that comes down. We do see there is a Mutavault.
It's still pretty interesting. We still don't know who's winning this game. A ton of turns into this Legacy game. We don't know who's winning, which is pretty unusual.
Here's Silvergill Adept, revealing another Regery.
So the Regery triggers. We'll see what he does with them. Have to imagine one will tap Maze.
Tap the Maze of Ith.
Yep. One taps Maze. And the other one, what I would do, I would untap my Relic, I think. But no,
he'll tap down because he's just going to try and push in some damage here.
Right.
And so at this point, 3 for, I assume, the other Regery.
Yep, and he should be using that Relic in response, but I don't think he is. I guess untapping those lands is good, so we can attack.
Untap Mishra's Factory and untap a land to activate Mishra's Factory, and then it's time to push in and get some damage in. Yep. So with 3 Regeries on the board, that means that each of those are 4/4. That Mishra's Factory is a 2/2, and that's going to drop William down to 5.
Yeah, that was a big turn for Chris. He tapped down all the creatures,
And
tapped William out, and swung.
that third Regery means that William is in very tough shape, because even if he leaves everything back, all it takes is a merfolk from Chris, and there's nothing back.
Right. There's a wasteland. That'll help by killing a manland that's attacking, but at 5 life, William does not have a lot of wiggle room here. He has 1 swords in his hand and a punishing fire, though that fire is
So
not
the
going to do a
swords
lot.
is going to try and take out a Regery right now.
Yep.
Got to do that now. There's a daze.
Chris will daze it, trying to tie up William's mana a little bit.
Yep. And we're going to go ahead. We're going to see what we got here. Already a bunch of stuff. Chooses to tap the wasteland. Interesting choice.
Yeah, it looks like he wants to play Punishing Fire and return it with that Grove. I think that's the only reason he'd do that. William trying to do some quick math. He cannot have Christopher drawing a Merfolk here, or playing a Merfolk.
And so Christopher goes back up to a nice round 20.
Yeah. 20-5 the life totals.
With the active relic, that also means that William doesn't have the chance to push heavily out and just get a whole bunch of lands into the bin and try and break through with those 2 knights.
Right. He almost never has to worry about that counter swing. And Green Sun for 2.
Green Sun for 2.
Not that many great targets here.
For?
I guess the second Pride Mage, but I think he just had to do that to stay alive. I think that was the issue.
Just needs another guy.
Yep, and that'll get the Pride Mage.
All right.
No mana to sack it, so that daze, seemingly late game useless daze, is really relevant as it tapped the 1 land, preventing him from activating Pride
Chris
Mage.
makes him remove something.
Swords to Plowshares, RFG, or exiled. Have to get my terms right when commentating with the judge, I suppose.
So now William does have access to some mana because those 2 knights are active.
Yep.
Can go ahead, send something packing in order to pull up a mana to activate the Pride Mage, but I'm not sure what you go after.
Yeah.
All you're gonna do is you can turn your Mother of Runes back on. So after blocks activating, but with mana emptying from the mana pool in steps, that means if Chris has a Merfolk, all those tap triggers, he's not going to be able to. He'll be able to search up the land and just hold it, I guess.
The one thing he can also do is if Christopher goes to tap his knights, he can use the knight to search up a Dryad Arbor. That'll at least let him jump block. And
Another blocker.
He has to hope Chris forgets about Dryad Arbor and goes all out here.
All right. Now he does have. I believe he does have another wasteland to go get, so he can take down the Mutavault or the Mishra's Factory if they come in.
Right. So the Mara Regery's abilities.
Looks like we've got another Regery being played.
Wow. So
and that's going to be 2
Regery.
triggers. Yep. One's already gone, guys. That's just 3 Regeries sitting around on the board.
So Mazavith is tapped from the Regery's ability.
Yep.
As is the Knight.
Knight sacrifices a Savannah?
Yep, sacked a Savannah, got a Taiga.
Got a Taiga.
So the current status of those Knights are 3/3. Current status of the Regery is 4/4. So block, block, block.
This is probably a search for a fetch.
They'll definitely.
Taiga goes away. That takes it to 4/4.
Yep, and
What are we
I would
finding?
think he
Wasteland?
should get a fetch here. I think he wants to make that Knight a 5/5 so it
Really
lives through
wants
combat.
to get the Groves. He must have a punishing fire that he thinks he's going to be able to be pretty aggressive with.
Yeah, and the one thing we'll see him do here, we'll see him sack his Pride Mage on that Pithing Needle so his Mother of Runes stays alive.
And can protect something else.
Or can protect the Knight, right.
Now we still do have an active relic.
Oh, actually, the relic got sacked before combat.
Okay,
started.
there we are. Well, we were on a tight shot. We missed that. So yeah, Relic shrunk down the 2 knights. So interesting choice.
Yeah, he must really wanted that grove. It seems to me like fetch land into another land, keep your knight alive would have been better than getting a second grove.
He may be counting wrong.
Yeah.
No, okay, so he protects his knight with the mother.
Okay, so he sacks
So he
his
does
mother
keep
rings.
two knights. Takes a little bit of damage down to trades directly out with one of the Regeries. And if he does have a punishing fire, then this is the time to start taking advantage of it and trying to break through. He needs to cast that 3 times. He's got to hit one of the Regeries twice, and then the other one once.
Yep.
And this is...
It's 5 mana.
For Batterskull.
Batterskull, wow. That was a draw.
I don't know. Doesn't Batterskull just get tapped down?
Well, he has no Merfolk in hand, so Chris needs to draw Merfolk right now to have any shot at this game. And that's an island. That's not going to do it. He has plenty of blockers here.
And once again, Batterskull seems to be bringing him back from the brink.
Yeah, what a good card, huh? So he's playing every format.
Pretty strong.
Well, maybe not vintage. So Chris trying to figure out if he can attack.
Here, he needs to tap down the Batterskull, and that's not working.
No, he has no way to do it. He has 2 islands in hand. He can't trigger those Regeries. It has to just
back
say go.
over.
And that'll pretty much be all she wrote for Christopher Carire. That Batterskull is going to go on to a knight again.
You've got to think so.
And he didn't grow his knights end of turn. Interesting.
Yeah. I think he's happy with the mana that he has.
Yeah, but every knight grown by 1 is 1 more life he gains.
And so here's the knight coming in.
It's
1,
a
2.
4/4, I think. +4/+4.
2.
Should be an 8/8.
That's huge. That takes him out of range.
Yeah, pretty much equalizes the life totals, brings him to 13, and drops his opponent to 12. And that's not a Merfolk either.
Force of Will is not a Merfolk and is not exciting when you don't have another blue card in your hand.
No. I mean, he can pay 5 for it, but all the cards he's worried about are on the board right now. And Christopher Carire, needed a Merfolk last turn, needed a Merfolk this turn, didn't get it.
Certainly the aggressive deck in the early going may have sacrificed his Relic a little bit prematurely.
Yeah, I didn't really like that too much.
Here's a Stoneforge Mystic.
And he'll check to see which equipment he still has in his deck. Umezawa's GT got Legend ruled very early, Batterskull in play. That's probably just a Squire at this point.
If the sword is still in, he can go find the sword. Here comes the knight in again for 8. And William's just putting himself out of reach.
Yeah, he is. Even if Christopher traded with those knights by trading with all his creatures, the Batterskull can just pick itself up and plop right back down again. So it looks like Chris is taking this damage. Going to 4, William going to 21.
Now in that situation, would you trade your Adept who's 3? You could activate your Mutavault to be your Adepts for your Mutavault would be 4. Would you be willing to trade those 2 in order to knock down one of the knights? Although even then, all he's got to do is go and
and then he just
sacrifice another land. I mean, you have to fully commit there.
Yeah, he should have traded a little earlier, I think. I'm not sure the first time or the second time, probably the second, but yeah, he definitely needed to trade.
Here's a knight. Here's a Silvergill Adept for 5. You're not going to see that very often.
Nope. 5 mana Adept.
The 2 triggers.
So
taps down the knight, and I didn't see what the other trigger was.
Yeah, he should have to declare them both right now. Yep, and that's what the table judge says. So 1 trigger targeting Regery.
So he's looking for. Table judge is clarifying that both triggers need to go onto the stack, and when they go onto the stack, they do need targets. So William gets to respond with full knowledge of what the targets are.
Yep. And a good point by Jacob Corey on Twitter. The Maverick player is playing around Submerge, which is definitely smart. A card that not many Merfolk lists play anymore, but it's still definitely worth it to play around it when William almost had the game locked up. So,
yep,
definitely true. A card that's easy to forget about.
Yep, and it's definitely a reason to be very careful with your fetch lands.
Right.
And if you're a Merfolk player, it's one of your few outs is the Submerge in response to a fetch.
Yep. I think though if he had a Submerge at that point, he would have used
it would have been
then.
played by this point. I think that there were a couple of points where Submerge would have been game.
Right, like say maybe a Submerge off the top of the deck.
When William first played Batterskull.
Right.
And so Wasteland takes down the Mutavault, and 3, 6, 10.
It's only 10 damage. It's less than half William's life, and
that's not enough, boys. That's not enough.
No.
And I don't know what his play is here.
He's dead on board.
He's got to be pickup.
Yeah, he doesn't want to accept it. He doesn't want to scoop him up, but he's just dead.
William doesn't even bother to Mazavith. Punishing Fires. Returns the Punishing Fire.
And turns creature sideways. And that's the game. There's the hand. Congratulations, William Cow.
All right, so that's actually a very interesting matchup because in both games it looked like Christopher had the upper hand early on, and Batterskull from William Cow was a big